Windows to basically perform a handful of commands and to understand the relationship between name resolution in terms of fully qualified domain names and IP addresses. And we're going to see how the responses from the server can change as you do this over and over and over again. We're also going to talk about the differences between authoritative answers and non-authoritative answers. Authoritative means that it actually comes from the name server that you already have specified, and a non-authoritative answer comes from somebody else's name server. We're also going to look at other types of records, and like C names and MX records and A records and pointer records and things like that, or how do you find a mail server for a particular domain, and look at some of the other record types. You can realistically use this command on just about any version of Windows, and it's going to be the same. Nonetheless, I would recommend using it on Unix, using it in Kali, using it on Windows. But we're just going to take a couple minutes here, and we're going to learn DNS inside and out. So the first thing that I want you to do is open up a command prompt and type in Nslookup. Now you can do this just from the command prompt and type in your name, like www.cybrary.it, and see where it comes from. And these are all of the default settings, but we can also go actually into an interactive mode. This is one of the few utilities that actually has an interactive mode, so we're going to look at that. So right here, what you can see is that I did it just from a one-liner, which is just, hey, if I want the answer and I know exactly what I'm looking for and I know exactly how to type it, I can just type it and be done with it. And you can see that Cybrary IT is currently located at 74.208.166.139. But I can also go interactively here and do basically the same thing. So I can do Nslookup, hit enter, and then I can just type it, www.cybrary.it, and you can see that the answer for the most part looks exactly the same, except you can see that my terminal prompt right here is just a caret sign, where before it was at ;/. So I'm still in interactive mode. So let's go ahead and type help and see what we can see here. So you can see the basic construct of the command, name 1 and name 2. I can set particular options. I particularly like the set type is equal to X. This is good because this talks about all of the different record types that you would likely to be using. So, for example, it talks about A records, which is your host name resolution, or any means all of them, or C name if there's an alias, or MX record if you're looking for the mail server, or NS for who are the name servers, or PTR records, which is the exact opposite of an A record. In the A record, you're looking for a name to IP, and a PTR, you're looking for an IP to name. I can also do a start of authority or look at service resource records. Mostly service resource records are more valuable inside when you're interrogating an internal company's DNS as opposed to externally, but nonetheless it's still helpful to try that. I can also do the server. I can actually specify the server that I want used, so that's pretty common. And I can also list out all of the domain records, and that's a very helpful option too, because if I can do a zone transfer, then basically an ls-d from a particular domain works really, really well. I typically use the ls-d option when I'm interrogating an internal company's DNS records as opposed to an external name server. So let's go ahead and start looking at this. Now, first thing we'll do is we'll do a set type is equal to A, which is more likely the default anyway, and you just hit enter and it comes back, and now I've got that parameter set. So now I can just type www.cybrary.it again, and you can see that the response basically looks the same. But what we're going to do here is change some of these record types. So if I change the type is equal to MX, you get the command prompt back, and then I basically hit the up arrow and hit my record again, and notice that my results changed, and that's the important one. And you can see that I'm basically hitting, a home router here that's located at 1.1, which is pretty much the same for everybody. I love it when people try to gray out this information. I'm like, it's pretty much the same for everybody, so there's no sensitive information here being disclosed. But my answer was non-authoritative because I basically asked my name servers as opposed to the name servers on the internet. So it says Cyberary IT, canonical name, also known as, so there's another name, an alias here, cyberary.it, and the mail server, it's got a preference of 0, and then the exchange, the mail exchanger is cyberary-it.mail.protection.outlook.com, denoted here. So right away I can basically start getting a little bit of reconnaissance. Nothing really game changer here in terms of showing anybody's hand of cards, but I can still, you always want to know what the responses are, and does that tell you information? And I'm basically just reading the results as they come to me here, and I'm just interpreting them, not particularly looking for any one thing. So let's set the type using another type. Let's do a set type is equal to start of authority, SOA, and then hit the up arrow twice, and you can see here that I've actually got a completely different response altogether. It's, again, non-authoritative because I'm asking my name servers, but I was still able to pull the record. I've got the primary name server at ns81.domaincontrol.com, so it's some sort of hosting environment. I got dns.joemax.net. I've got the serial number, and in this case, the serial number is actually listed as a date. If I was a hacker, I would be interested in that, because if I see something really, really old, that tells me, when's the last time they changed the domain information. But in this case, 2014 11/17 is actually just a few days ago, so that's pretty current in the grand scheme of things. Also, I have the refresh. That's how many times is the zone going to attempt to be refreshed. In this case, it's every 8 hours, or 28,800 seconds, or it will, if it doesn't get a response after 8 hours, it'll continue to try for every 2 hours, or 7,200 seconds, and eventually, if it doesn't get any response from any other name server in 7 days, then, or 604,800 seconds, it will it'll start timing out, and the name servers will not answer any requests anymore. And I also have a default time to live, which is 10 minutes in itself. So I would look for this information when I'm doing this and basically document it. And some of the things that I'm looking for here, it really depends on if it's an internal name server versus an external name server. But having said that, one of the common ones that you look for externally is just using Google. It's a very, very popular thing amongst people in the trade. So let's go ahead and ask a different name server. Let's do a server 8.8.8.8, which is Google's. And you can see it says Google Public DNS for a.google.com, and we can just basically cycle through this and see if we get any sort of differences. So Cyberary.it, okay, we're still in the start of authority record, so name server 81 came back both times, so that didn't change. We can set the type is equal to A, run through the command again. It looks pretty much the same, except in this case my server's different. We can change the type to MX, see if there's any difference here. Okay, no difference here. And I would record all of this. Now, one of the problems that you end up having in interactive mode is there's no really good way to capture the information. So let's go ahead and exit out of here, and I want to show you kind of a little bit of trick. So let's do Nslookup. Let's do www.cyberary.it, and let's go ahead and append the outputs to file .txt. and basically the command runs, it says non-authoritative answer, and then I'll do a notepad file.txt, and I can see that the response actually got dumped to my file. Now, the advanced way to use this utility, especially for documentation purposes, is I run this all from a single command line and then just keep appending to the file. And what I mean by that is, in this case, I did file.txt, but you notice I used two greater signs right here. This appends. If I use a single greater sign, then it just replaces. If I use a double, then it appends. So if I continue to go through here and set the type a little bit differently, let me go in here. So I'm going to go into interactive mode, Nslookup. I'm going to set type equal to mx, and then I'll exit out and then do the same thing again, Nslookup www.cybrary.it, and append that to file.txt. I'll close out of that file so I can open it back up, and now you can see that it appended the results to the file, and that's definitely more of the advanced options that you're likely to have. So the takeaway here, let's go ahead and summarize. Let's go ahead and clear our screens, and let's do an Nslookup and then do a help. Okay, so it's the name in which you apply. That would be the Cybrary IT in this example. We can set particular options. What we did was set the particular types. We looked at start of authority records, host records, mail records. We could have also done name server. If I wanted to get an authoritative answer, I could have specified that specifically, and then I could actually set the name server here using the server space, the name of the server you want, and then I could also list the ls tac d for a particular server, and that would basically pull any of the records that it possibly could get from that destination. So that's it. Know the record types, know the differences between authoritative versus non-authoritative, and learn to use this on multiple systems, particularly Windows and Unix, because those are going to be more than likely the places where you're going to spend the most time here. So once again,